The rain hammered against the pavement like 1,000 tiny fists as Marcus Chen stood frozen in the alley behind the Sterling Financial Building, his hands raised defensively, his expensive suit soaked through and clinging to his trembling frame. Blood trickled from a cut above his eyebrow, mixing with the rain and tears streaming down his face. The three men circling him had already taken his wallet, his watch, his dignity. Now they wanted more. Marcus had built an empire from nothing, commanded boardrooms with a single glance, made million-dollar decisions before breakfast. But in this moment, cornered and broken, he was just a frightened man who had forgotten what it meant to be human. His voice cracked as he pleaded with his attackers, the words tumbling out in desperate, ragged gasps. "Please don't hit me, I'm already hurt, I'm already so hurt." He wasn't talking about the physical pain anymore. Before you continue with this story, if you believe in the power of kindness, in second chances, and in the strength it takes to be vulnerable, please take a moment to like this video. Leave a comment about a time someone showed you unexpected mercy. Share this with someone who needs hope today. And subscribe to our channel for more stories that remind us of our shared humanity. The largest of the attackers stepped forward, fist raised, when a voice cut through the storm like a blade. "That's enough." The words were quiet, but carried the weight of absolute authority. A man emerged from the shadows, his worn jacket darkened by rain, his face weathered but kind. This was David Richardson, a single father who worked 2 jobs to keep his daughter fed, who knew these streets because he'd walked them at his lowest, who recognized the look in Marcus's eyes because he'd seen it in his own mirror years ago. David didn't look like a hero. His shoes had holes in them, his truck barely ran, but he stepped between Marcus and the attackers without hesitation, his presence somehow larger than his frame. The muggers assessed this new player, calculating odds and risks. David didn't threaten them. He didn't need to. He simply stood there, radiating the quiet strength of a man who had survived worse than this and had nothing left to prove. He looked at each of them with something that wasn't quite pity, but wasn't judgment either. It was recognition. He saw them. After a long moment, the attackers melted back into the rain-soaked night, leaving David and Marcus alone in the alley. Marcus collapsed against the brick wall, his carefully constructed world crumbling around him like wet paper. He had spent the last 20 years building walls around his heart, climbing over everyone who got in his way, measuring his worth in quarterly earnings and stock prices. His wife had left him 3 years ago, taking their children. His employees feared him. His competitors despised him. And tonight, after the board had questioned his latest acquisition, after another evening alone in his penthouse, seeing only his own reflection in the floor-to-ceiling windows, he had realized he couldn't remember the last time someone had looked at him and seen a person instead of a position. David extended his hand, helping Marcus to his feet. He didn't ask questions. He didn't demand explanations. He simply said, "I've got a first aid kit in my truck. Let's get you cleaned up." They sat in David's battered vehicle as the rain continued its relentless drumming on the roof. David tended to Marcus's wounds with gentle, practiced hands, the same hands that braided his daughter's hair every morning and packed her lunches with notes that said he loved her. Marcus found himself talking, the words pouring out like a dam had broken. He spoke about the loneliness, the crushing pressure, the way success had hollowed him out until he was just a shell performing the role of a powerful man. David listened without interrupting, occasionally nodding, his eyes never leaving Marcus's face. When Marcus finally fell silent, David shared his own story. He spoke about losing his wife to cancer, about the nights he'd stood in his daughter Emma's doorway watching her sleep and wondering if his love would be enough, about the choice he made every single day to show up as the man he wanted his daughter to believe in rather than the broken person he sometimes felt like inside. He talked about how real strength wasn't about never falling down, but about getting back up and reaching out your hand to help someone else rise too. In that moment, sitting in a truck that smelled like coffee and crayons and hope, Marcus understood what he had been missing. Connection, purpose, the simple human grace of being seen in your brokenness and not being turned away. If this story is touching something in your heart, if you've ever felt alone in your pain or been saved by an unexpected act of kindness, please don't scroll past without engaging. Hit that like button. Leave a comment telling us what this story meant to you, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Your engagement helps these messages of hope reach people who desperately need them. Comment below. Have you ever been someone's David, or has someone been yours? Before we close, the next morning Marcus tracked down David through the license plate, discovering he worked at a warehouse and drove for a rideshare service at night. Marcus showed up at David's door, not with money, but with a question. Teach me how to be human again. And David, with his daughter peeking curiously from behind his leg, smiled and said, "Come have breakfast with us." Over scrambled eggs and Emma's endless questions about everything, Marcus began to understand that wealth wasn't measured in bank accounts, but in moments of genuine connection. That power wasn't about control, but about lifting others up. That the strength to be vulnerable was the bravest thing a person could choose. He began volunteering at the community center, where David coached youth basketball. He restructured his company to prioritize employee well-being. He called his children and asked not for forgiveness but for the chance to learn how to be the father they deserved. The change didn't happen overnight, but it happened. And it started in an alley in the rain, when one broken man said, "Please don't hit me, I'm already hurt," and another broken man said, "I see you," and stepped forward anyway. Sometimes salvation doesn't look like we expect. Sometimes it shows up in worn shoes and a kind heart, reminding us that we're never too lost to be found, never too broken to be whole, never too alone to be loved. We just have to be brave enough to let ourselves be seen.